Good afternoon and welcome back to the afternoon session. I believe you had some good session on the earthquake technologies which are being developed and were carried out by University of Roorkee. So we left somewhere amidst the causes of floods and what are the happenings over there. So in this afternoon session, I will, because the even coverage of the types of disaster is very vast. So we'll keep on doing that, and simultaneously we'll take up some other topics as well which are related to the disaster management. So continuing with the floods, the major issue with the damages which are relating to floods is that it is more prominent when you have high population density areas. It is also definitely more when you come across widespread poverty, unemployment, illiteracy, and when there is enormous pressure on rural lands and economy traditionally dominated by the agriculture. Now, what really goes about is that see in the areas when the flood occurs. So first thing what happens is that coverage of the land, and if the coverage of land in some even 6-inch deep water takes place, so maybe that the houses are or the other buildings do not get much damaged out, but the first casualty is normally the agriculture, because if the crops remain flooded for a longer period of time, so they get damaged very quickly. So thereby this means that the even small extent of flooding may have higher impact on the rural areas or the areas which are covered by agriculture land. Similarly, uh, if you consider the population spread out, see if you look out in big cities, so we have multi-storied buildings, so flood is going to affect only the ground floor, right? So if I say that we have a 10-story building in Delhi or somewhere else, so even the flooding occurs, so the most affected will be the ground floor people. So out of 10 stories, only one story is affected. So this means only 10% population is affected. So obviously, when we talk of the losses in the built-up areas or cities, the percentage population which may be affected would be less compared to to the rural areas. So rural areas, you'll find people are having single-story houses mostly, particularly those in the agriculture areas. They have only even kacha houses or that. So the one picture which I showed you, that was from actually Bihar. So whenever floods come in Bihar, because Bihar has a widespread population and which is relatively poor. The other thing related is that if you are having only ground floor houses, so anything which is near the ground can easily get damaged. And flooding is also accompanied by the rainfall. So most of the items, because the people who are poor, they will have lesser number of items. So any loss which takes place is a big loss for them. Children and women are particularly vulnerable because by nature they are not really that, even with all my due respect to the other gender, but usually this happens because male member are able to go to the safety places quickly, and women, they are more concerned about their own children, so they can endanger themselves more compared to the male members maybe. So we have some more issues about that when we talk about psychological aspects. And the findings have been that 85% of the death during disasters are that of women and children. So it's based on some data, not simply a kind of hypothetication. And this is from the Center for Research on Epidemiology of Disasters. Presently, we really don't have adequate protection against the flooding disasters taking place. If you, as you know, that we have in areas like Assam, we know from the decades that the floods are going to come, and it's classified as periodical. We have even classified these, that these are going to occur, known to us, and yet we have not been able to do lot much about counterfeiting their adverse effects. In future, what we need to do is that flood control and management planning along with the climatic change As he said, we said that many of the flooding is also related to other types of disasters like tornadoes, cyclones, etc. So we need to. What happens is, we have a separate departments who are looking for these particular sectors. So there's a lack of coordination. So what we need to do is that we need to identify. Of course, we already identified where are the flood occurrence taking place, but then we need to find out the solutions in terms that whatever is the excess water, can we really find out a safe outlet. Basically, mitigation of flooding is two-way. One is the minimizing the flood extent, so that can be done when you find a safe outlet or maybe a type of storage. For example, I know that in vicinity of Chandigarh there was they have constructed a dam called Kushalya Dam, primarily for some other objective. But what really goes about is that it doesn't get much of the storage which was expected to be. But if you have this kind of structure built up at different places, so obviously you can use them for storing the water, and you can also use the structure for production of energy and many other benefits. If you carefully see the uh, historical perspective with which Himachal, the state of Himachal Pradesh have grown up in the last 2 decades, what they have done is they have built up many dams, smaller to big dams. So there was only big dam like Bhakra Nangal, but then they had Naphtha Jakti and many more smaller dams. The quantum, because we all know that the flow of rivers takes place from the highest places, Bhagirthi from Himalayas, like that. So hills are at higher level, so the flow of water starts over there. So if you can tap them, store them, and use their forces to production of energy, that's what was done in Himachal. So they have started, they are already selling the electricity to the neighboring states and various departments and earning a lot of revenue from that. So this is basically harnessing the natural resources or diversion of the havoc to the boon. That's a grim picture of Bihar 2014. Another one you could see, and some figures about that. I'm not going to dwell much upon that. But the important is that they were running 146 relief camps to provide food and shelter to around 33,000 people over there. You can skip that. This is the important thing. That is um, the vulnerability of the flood in our country. Wherever you see the yellow, the darker one is more vulnerable and the lighter one is less vulnerable. So you can see that uh, it is not that the whole of India is covered by this, but again you can find that the more concentration is again in the Himalayan belt side. You can see, so it is more on, and then some on the coastal areas. Why so in coastal areas? Because we mentioned the coastal areas can experience the flooding due to rising of the sea level, or also because the cyclones and tornadoes, they are quite frequent and they carry the water there. So those areas are covered in that, and again the central portion is more or less clear of that. So we are in Chandigarh north, all those Gurgaon, etc., they are also covered in that. So we fall in this zone which is prone to the flooding as well. Adverse effects we have already discussed, and but the greater is one of the greater from the direct adverse effect is that flooding. Due to flooding, the products get damaged, agriculture get damaged. The stagnant water can be a breeding point for the mosquitoes and other such kind of species which will spread malaria, and the food products also get decayed or storage is difficult. So the likelihood of spreading out of various type of diseases and to some extent many times epidemics, that becomes prominent if the flood condition continues. You might have seen that, despite, if you remember what happened in last year in the Kashmir floods, was, immediately the danger was more of, controlling the hygiene and sanitation conditions in the city of Srinagar and all what, because the dead animals, they get stacked up somewhere, which die during the flooding. Likewise, the food items, and many other things which are organic or decayable, they are in the bad condition, so they start decaying. The sewage gets mixed up. The most dangerous thing is, because of the mixing of water, flooding, all water gets mixed up. We know that the mixing of water is very, very prominent. It is very quick. Anything you come in contact. So the sewage water, which was supposed to be from the lines, it will get mixed up, and the effect will be seen on the groundwater itself, what is there. So that creates a terribly bad situation. And to the extent that drinking water, which is also through the pipelines, that also get affected. So a big challenge is, to maintain the hygiene and sanitation. So thereby a lot of teams were, mobilized, and free tablets to purify water were served. So all those kind of measures need to be taken. So floods will have the effects not immediately during the occurrence, but they will have post occurrence and up to delayed period. Yeah, we already said it. 23 of 35 states and unions are subject to floods in our country, and roughly 1/8 of the geographical area is subject to that. And recognizing that, the program was launched as back as 1954. Sometime, they forget friends and foes, and do the help. That's the situation in Kashmir, very recent one. The aerial view of the same place, which was called to be heaven, near to heaven. That's of what is this? कौन सा यूनिट है? Yes. Again, I said, the another form is urban flooding. We have seen many floods. We talked in the forenoon also. I'm not going to discuss more, but just that how frequent the occurrence is, that in Ahmedabad 2001, 14, Delhi 2002, 3, 9 and 10, Chennai in 2004, and last year as well, Mumbai 2005, Surat 2006, like that. So they have been becoming quite frequent, and I skipped that because we discussed without the okay. So the last year's information, what really happened is that may be slightly different. In Rajasthan, last year the flooding took place. You remember? We forget. That's a good thing. Sometimes we should forget some of the bad things. But you should forget, but learn the lessons. We shouldn't forget without learning the lesson. Okay. Now, as I said that we are better equipped with the NIDM and NDRF. So last year in the state of Rajasthan, there was flooding, and 13 teams. Rajasthan used to be desert. You can see that how climatic changes have taken place over a period of years. So the imbalance in environment and nature have resulted in deviations from the trends, and some of the flooding was again type of urban flooding, because they had never experienced so much of the water, so their system were never geared up to take up even the small extent of higher amount of the downpour. So flooding took place. So 13 teams of NDRF, 2 units of army and 7 helicopters were to be mobilized. And simultaneously in Gujarat, against 27 teams of army, and 16 state units team had to be deployed for the reliefs. Okay, now uh, the cyclones is the different categories. The cyclone, as you can see, cyclone is basically a wind-borne, but it has been listed under the category, yes, because they are mostly accompanied by the movement of water as well. As we see that, before I talk what really goes to making cyclone, is the very basics of the nature we need to understand. We all know that water can exist in three phases: solid, liquid, and gases. And another aspect we all know is that when there is a rise in temperature, the air gets lighter. Okay, the air gets the hot air gets lighter, and then it will move up. So light thing will move up. So if hot air moves up, so there would be reduction in the atmospheric pressure. There will be reduction in atmospheric pressure. Okay. When there is a reduction in atmospheric pressure, the nature is going to trying to balance it out. So the air from high pressure zone will start moving to the low pressure zone. That's a very natural phenomenon, and that is the basic two issues which are related to, if you want to have a very good understanding, that's very basic of that. Even in class 5 6 we have studied. So when the balancing act has to be done, it has to be done in polite manner, but sometimes it is not done in polite manner. If it is not done in polite manner, it is done in the kind of impact, then the damage occurs. So that's all actually is the basis of occurrence of the cyclones and tornadoes, etc. That the light air moves up, it creates a zone of low pressure. The air from high pressure zone is going to move to the low pressure zone. Now if it moves smoothly, the things are okay. If moves violently, the things go out of. Now where do we occur? If you again, let me see, what happens in the coastal areas is that we often come across a moderate climate, in the sense that the areas which are closer to sea, the air will flow from sea to land side during daytime, okay, and during night time it will be reverse, right? So that's how the conditions are moderate. Now when again this 24-hour basis the changes are taking place, if something goes different from that, so the disturbances do take place. Now this is a picture of a cyclone. You can see it's a, can you see the picture? Yeah, so you can see this is an aerial view taken from above, so it's a satellite based actually picture. And another one which is closer, so you can now observe here that there are two things. One is that it has got a centrifugal motion. Centrifugal motion is about the center and rotation outside, right? And second thing is that it has more of the concentration inside, right? What you see here inside is a white, is actually the water, okay, because as we said the movement takes place from the seaside, so when the wind comes from the seaside, so it is going to have the water vapors along that. So that's what actually it is. Now how the precisely the development takes place is a matter of knowledge that in different parts of the world different phenomena occur, and there is some variation. For example, one which we are going to talk about is tropical cyclone. This is all the definition kind of thing. The tropical means relating to some climatic zones. Tropical cyclones with maximum sustained surface winds of less than 17 meter per second are called tropical depressions, and once the tropical cyclone reaches wind of at least 17 meter per second, they are called tropical storm. So there are two motions. One is the centrifugal motion which is taking place, and another is the horizontal movement or lateral movement. So all of us know that the centrifugal movement you can convert in terms of that's actually measured in terms of radians per second, because it is a centrifugal motion, but you can convert in the meters per second. So if it reaches above 17 meter per second, then this type of occurrence will take place. And when the velocity increases more than 33 meter per second, then it is called a hurricane. So cyclone is mild, hurricane is faster. So cyclone is a spin bowler, hurricane is a pace bowler, like that. Now this phenomena, when it takes place in the northwest Pacific Ocean, which is west of the dateline, that is called then typhoon. And then we also have a term which is called severe tropical cyclone, and they are known to have occurred in southwest Pacific Ocean, which lies at these coordinates. So likewise we have severe cyclonic storm and tropical cyclone. These terms are specific to the geographical known areas. So, but the basic thing is that cyclone is a little milder, and hurricane is more violent. So the in USA they are called the hurricane. Katrina was one of the name of the hurricanes. To understand that more logically, this is what is happening over there. You can see that you have now we are going to explain the motions. So what you have is a low pressure zone which is formed at the center, and you have a warm moist air. The center is called the eye. So what happens is that the moist air can enter from the upward direction to the center low pressure zone, and this periphery is called eye wall. So low pressure zone movement, and from the above the high moist wind ending into descending. So this is causing the this is resulting into centrifugal motion, and by the thrust then this is going to move in this direction. Another explanation of that, how the movements do take place. The red one here shows the upward movement of low pressure and the entering of moist water, and the resultant is, so this is that was anti-clockwise, this would result into the clockwise. So both can be feasible, clockwise and anti-clockwise. You can see that this is a kind of very close graphics of this phenomena taking place, and it's showing you the movements which are being formed in the beginning, and later on stages the movement becomes faster. So the occurrence is at one place, and the whole, so it involves huge amount of the air and moisture, and the movement, when wherever it goes through, because of the high wind, it will have two-way effect. One is due to the high wind, and when it is because circumferential, it can suck in the objects within, because the center is hollow. You can see the center is hollow. Due to the centrifugal motion, the center is hollow. So when it is moving, say from up, because the center is hollow and it has a centrifugal motion, So anything which is from the bottom can be sucked up, which comes near the eye. So that's how the devastation effects take place. It's not simply by the speed of actually the hurricane. It's not by the linear speed of that. It is more because from the center it will suck the objects, and when they reach over here, you see the figure, when they reach somewhere here, it can be sucked over here, reach here, and then you can see that it will spill around, thrown out. See, the objects will be then thrown out. So once they are lifted, thrown out, they are finished. So it's not only objects, you can see the houses actually get sucked up. I'm sure you must have seen American movie. What was that? हरिकेन ही था उसका नाम. तो नहीं देखा नहीं. यूएस पिक्चर नहीं देखी इसके ऊपर, हरिकेन के ऊपर जो बनी हुई है. So what? Because in US they have the houses made of wooden houses are there. They are not made of like we make of the steel or reinforcement. It's a lesser, except the multi-story building. The houses, 2 or 3 storied houses are made of the wood. Even if you go to Goa in our country and some parts of Kerala, the houses they made from wooden planks rather than, because what they realize is that in case of any kind of damage, the wood is going to, a wooden plank falling, it will going to result less damage to the human beings, number one. Then wood has got more advantages. It has got the acoustic properties. It's lightweight construction, so they prefer lightweight construction. Unfortunately, in our country, we are not comfortable with this type of construction, because we always believe someone can drill through the wood and enter the room or house. So it is not secure at all, and that's true as well. It's not secure at all. Those who can even break open with the soldering your iron gate, so they can easily break through the wooden walls. So that's definitely, so it's only used for the finishing works, interior finishing or that. But I've seen that the big planks made, even in Goa you have the wooden houses. So the advantage of them is that they being lightweight, lightweight construction has its own advantages. If you say the soil bearing capacity, if it is less, you can still construct it because the building load is very less. So the houses can be, planks can be just simply, sucked up and thrown. Even cars, human beings, they can be thrown like that. That is very, very dangerous, the centrifugal action. Now this is slightly more scientific explanation that you have in terms of the solar heat, evaporation, then condensation taking place, energy transfer, energy release. So for the a die-hard person, that's information. Then tropical cyclones, that's what our country experiences, a cyclone, and we have a coastline something like more than 7,500 kilometers, which is one of the longest in the whole world, and its 10% exposure is to the tropical cyclone. If you remember, 70% of this area is in 10 states. Only 10 states are more vulnerable: Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Puducherry, Odisha, West Bengal, etc. And on an average, about 5 to 6 tropical cyclones are from Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea and hit the coast every time. And 2 and 3 are always severe. So they are also accompanied by severe heavy rainfall and river floods. So indirectly they will do the flooding in the rivers also. Now we have experienced that the wind velocity is up to 65 km per hour and 117 km per hour, and wind speeds 119 km per hour to 164 km per hour in the states of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. So that's quite a common phenomena occurring. So this is again type of repeated feature, and more or less the occurrence is there every 1 or 2 years. The occurrence is there. The intensity may change. That's a cyclone hazard map. You can again see the coastal area you can see is totally covered, and north is always covered. I don't know. Do you see this region? Chandigarh is covered in all, most of them. So we are brave people bearing brunt of all the type of disasters, right? And the one which you see at the top is actually because of the less population, the area in Kashmir. The effect because of less population is. Then we have a term called super cyclonic storm. So here the wind speed will go as high as 250 km per hour. And this was experienced in Odisha in 29th October 99. And if you remember, we had put it under one of the worst disasters which was experienced in our country. At that time, 10,000 people died. So some of the cyclones which occurred in India and neighboring countries are these here. The severest was in Bangladesh in 1991, which is one among the top 10 disasters till today. 1,39,000 people dying, and in 99, 10,000 people died. So you can see the 10,000 is quite common figure. It's 71, 77, 99. So that is being repeated. If you remember, there was a similar phenomena which occurred last year in Andhra Pradesh itself. Okay. Fortunately, the losses in terms of loss of human life was very limited. That was for the reason because they were able to predict the area which is going to be covered by the cyclone. It was a progressive movement. It had to cover and reach Andhra Pradesh from the Bay of Bengal, and the army and NRDF, they joined hands along with district administrations, and they evacuated people from those areas to the safe places. So as a result, the human loss and also the cattle loss was very less, but economy loss is something beyond much of our control. You can't take the houses to different places. So hurricane is powerful cyclone which we mentioned. Maybe. So this is a little variation. What we are discussing cyclones, then we have been talking of hurricanes, and again here some picture of hurricane. You can here see that it has a very two different pictures I have selected. This one is a anti-clockwise, right, and you can very clearly see that there is a central portion is whole, and the other one is a clockwise. This one is a clockwise, but again the central portion being whole. So that is the place where the suction takes place, because the movement is somewhere above the land. It is not along the land, it's above the land. It's a movement of air. So if it is closer to the land, then it can be very, very dangerous. So the height of this above the level, that will actually determine the extent of damage it can cause. So we always wish it should be as high as possible. Now this is one which doesn't have very clear, it's a kind of now dispersal. When it will be in the stage of dispersal, then the eye will gradually get lost and get merged up with the main material. Now this is what is movement of hurricane, you can see, and the whole of this movement takes place in the lateral direction. A typhoon is similar to hurricane, and they are seen near the equator, and here the winds are very high speed. So it's 150 miles per hour. 150 miles per hour means it's something like more than 200 kilometer per hour, right? And 300, it can reach up to 300 miles wide. वाइड मीन्स के इसकी जो अपना स्प्रेड आउट है वो इतने माइल्स हो सकता है. तो यानी एक सिंगल टाइफून यहाँ से लेके दिल्ली तक का बहुत बड़ा जो है, कवरिंग दिस सिंगल फ्रॉम चंडीगढ़ टू दिल्ली, पूरा एक सिंगल दैट कैन बी अ टाइफून, एंड दैट हैज एक्चुअली अकर्ड. Now I think let me give a break here because I want to talk to you something different, but this one I can cover, lightning, thunder and storm, because they are related to that. Lightning everyone knows, but some facts we do not know is that more than 100 lightning bolts strike the earth every second. More than 100 lightning bolts strike the earth every second. So these are little rivers of electricity brighter than 10 million 100 watt light bulbs. What is the intensity of the lightning when it occurs? Is equal to 10 million. अगर आप 100 वाट के 10 लाख बल्ब एक साथ जला दोगे तो उतनी जो लाइट पैदा होगी वो लाइटनिंग में इतनी लाइट होती है. And that travels at a speed of 95 km/h. Anyone has seen lightning? We have seen only in sky. Anyone has seen on the earth? It can make you you can lose your eyesight partially if you see that closely. I still remember once I saw that. It was just very close to, we were playing less than maybe 12-year-old or so, and it was raining. We were just standing in the veranda and I saw something like coming and then going back. So in the flash of the second, it was such a high intensity light that we virtually were, I was virtually blind for a fraction or for a second or so. I couldn't see anything, after that lightning. Just then when I regained after a few seconds, then I realized what I had seen. But that was quite a rare phenomena because lightning is terribly dangerous. So if you see that we have a lightning conductors in the top of the buildings, so if any lightning falls, so they provide a safe passage to the earth. The thunder and storm, we all know that. So I am going to now give a pause at this. We can discuss that volcanoes and other types of disasters, because I know that a similar type of information, particularly in the afternoon session, can invite mini disaster in terms that you go to sleep. So I don't want to do that. So let me make more, because you want to hear something more also. Now this is I'm going to share with you. It's absolutely nothing of my own. Uh, 5 years before, actually, it's something like 5 years before, I happened to be at Bikaner, and there also actually we conducted a program on disaster management. I think that was probably the second we did over there. We did an engineering college there, and during that period, very recently, if I say correctly, I think it is more than 5 years from now, 5 or 6 years, there was a fire which had taken place in Jaipur, in Indian Oil Depot. So two of their tanks, very huge. That was a major storage actually. There's a big depot. Jaipur is a big depot. Two of the tanks had caught the fire, and the resultant losses ran into hundreds of crores, little close to 100 of 40, 50 crores was there. And that brought about a lot of hue and cry, and then the efforts were made to do the safety measures more stringent, control against terrorism, and all these kind of things which can take place, because the real cause is sometimes not very clearly known. But any spark of fire, when you are storing the chemicals or products like petrol, diesel, like that, which are very inflammable, you need to be very very careful. Tomorrow actually we are going to have an expert on that. So we learned that there was a Bharat Gas is a Bharat Petroleum company. They are manufacturing cylinders, gas cylinders. Now that is going to be slightly phased out in many of the cities with the pipeline, gas pipeline coming. In Chandigarh also they are already nearly the completion of that, laying the pipeline for the gas supply. So we visited that factory. This factory, this unit which was producing and storing the domestic gas cylinders, LPG cylinders, they had on the directions or learning a lesson, they had drawn out a complete disaster management plan. And disaster management plan is worked out specially with respect to the fire, not for the earthquakes or other, because for them it is the most important one. So they prepared a disaster management plan. And we had a demonstration also. Um, After we were taken out and shown many places, then this guy brings us to one particular location where the loading and unloading takes place. And then we say that if you have a kind of fire which has developed or some problem, that's a button we are going to press, so alarm button. So he did that, and then he told us that please move from this place here. So I said, why he's asking us to move from this place? It's the same place there, same place here. When we moved here, then we found that immediately there was a fountain of water from the top. It automatically was released. So means if there was a truck which or a cylinder caught fire, that the water will sprinkle from the top. Then there were kind of sirens which immediately were hooters went on. The hooters went on. As the hooters went on, there was a group of people, few people we found in a very short while, less than 2 minutes, less than we found that 5-6 people who were specially dressed, they came out, and they were holding some of something like extinguishers or those kind of things. So that the complete mock drill was done, and in less than 3 minutes time, total 2 to 3 minutes, everything happened as to counter for that particular fire, if it was a real one. So I'm going to share this plan, which is termed as emergency preparedness, that in case of emergency what should be done. Each of the organizations, that's actually termed as a disaster preparedness. Tomorrow we are going to have an expert, and she's going to explain you what are the disaster preparedness plans, what is the mitigation and disaster response, different aspects are to it. So let us see that what this plan has been. The company was Bharat Gas, and that's a real one, so we can say the topic what they said was that to fire order, disaster control management plan and mutual aid scheme, learning from emergency fire drills, security checks and emergency handling procedures during off-shift hours. Now you have two things. One is the on shift. On shift means, like we have 9 to 5:30 is on shift. People are already there. When it is off shift, when very few people, maybe security people or 2 3 more people are there, that's the off shift. So if you have off shift, that means there are very few people who are actually at the site and can identify or respond or inform of the occurrence of the fire. So you will have different arrangements, on shift and off shift. That's why it is specifically written. If you read it, it's very well explicit. Learning from emergency fire drills, security checks and emergency handling procedures. So you should know what are the emergency handling procedures during off shift hours. Expectations. What do they expect? Commitment and role clarification of individual team members, sharing of information. Now this happens. Commitment is important. If you are not committed for the reason that unfortunately people think of themselves, but if you have a community feeling that what you are going to do is going to save the life and property, so you are working in an organization, it becomes your moral responsibility to take care of its products. So as a student, like, we expect you that you will not deface the walls. If you have the open classrooms, if you have the library open, so you'll use the library for the designated purpose. And I'm going to tell you little later, if you have the internet facility, we expect you to use for the educational purpose, not simply using for the social media purpose, because that's what we actually provided you for. So that is a commitment. Low role clarifications. Who will do what? Often it so happens, many things anybody can do, but then nobody will do. If you leave it, not clear, then nobody will do, because everybody thinks somebody else could have done it. So this reminds me of a story, छोटी सी. It's off the track. एक राजा था, तो उसको बड़ा था कि मेरी प्रजा, मैं तो बहुत कुछ इनके लिए करता हूँ, तो मेरी प्रजा मुझे बहुत चाहती है. उसके मंत्री ने कहा, जी आप गलतफहमी में हो. कहता, जी कैसे? कहता, नहीं मैं तो करता हूँ, तो वो मुझे बहुत चाहते हैं. कहता, जी ठीक है, मैं आपको इसका सबूत दूंगा. कहता है ठीक है. कहता है बट मुझे आप जैसे मैं कहता हूँ चलना. कहता है ओके. तो मंत्री जी ने मुनादी करवा दी कि राजा की जो वाइफ है वो बीमार हो गई है, स्किन डिसीज हो गया. अब उसको एक बड़े साधु जी ने बताया कि वो पूर्णिमा वाले दिन एक टैंक में, हौदी में, 10 मीटर बाय 10 मीटर की हौदी में अगर वो दूध का भरा होगा तो उसमें वो नहाएंगी पूर्णिमा की रात को, तो वो ठीक हो जाएंगी. तो आप सब से निवेदन है कि आप एक एक, अब जिनके पास गाय हैं वो हैं, तो आप आधी आधी बाल्टी या एक एक बाल्टी दूध की एक दिन आप उस दिन वहाँ पे डाल के आए. ठीक है. तो वो बुनियादी करवा दी. तो अब वो जब रात को उनको लेके गए तो वहाँ देखा तो वो सारा पानी से भरा हुआ, दूध की जगह वो पानी से भरा हुआ. तो राजा ने मुझसे पूछा, ये क्या, तुमने क्या मुनादी करवाई थी? कहते जी मैं तो ये मुनादी करवाई थी अनाउंसमेंट, एक एक दूध का वो आप बाल्टी डालना है, आधी एक बाल्टी. तो कहते हुआ क्या? कहते जी सबने सोचा वो तो दूध डाल देगा, तो मेरा एक बाल्टी पानी का पता ही नहीं चलेगा. तो सबने एक एक बाल्टी पानी डाल दिया. So that is the commitment. We always expect others to do their job well, and we do not think that what we should be doing. So example has to start from yourself, right? तो ये होती है कमिटमेंट. रोल क्लैरिफिकेशन, सबको क्लियर होना चाहिए किसने क्या करना है, बिकॉज इफ इट इज नॉट क्लियर व्हाट रियली हैपेंस इज यू हैव वेरी शॉर्ट टाइम टू रिस्पॉन्ड. तो मैं सोचता हूँ कि मैं ये करूँगा, वो सोचता है मैं भी ये करूँगा, और एक और काम है वो कोई भी नहीं करेगा. सो द रोल हैज टू बी डिफाइंड दैट हु विल डू व्हाट एट व्हाट टाइम. Individual team members, that means you have to make a team first, and the sharing of information. तो क्या important information है उसको आपने आपस में कैसे शेयर करना है वो भी क्लियर होना चाहिए. That is expected. These are then they were defined expectations. तो ये सारा उन्होंने उनको अपने जितने टीम मेंबर्स थे, जितने आपके एम्प्लॉइज थे, सबके साथ बैठ के ये सारा प्लान शेयर किया हुआ है. देन इमरजेंसी प्रिपेयर्ड प्लान्स, फायर ऑर्डर, ऑन शिफ्ट फायर ऑर्डर. मतलब फायर ऑर्डर का मतलब उनका ये है कि फायर का जो जो हो गया है तो उसका कौन वो सिग्नल देगा. तो दो उन्होंने क्लियर किए, एक तो ऑन शिफ्ट अरेंजमेंट है, देन ऑफ शिफ्ट और हॉलीडेज, तो उनका मैकेनिज्म डिफरेंट होगा. तो देन डिजास्टर कंट्रोल मैनेजमेंट प्लान, उसको कंट्रोल कैसे किया जाएगा, उसका मैनेजमेंट प्लान डेवलप किया जाएगा. ऑन साइट, ऑफ साइट. ऑन साइट का मतलब ये है अभी जितने लोग बैठे हुए हैं वहां पे प्रेजेंट है फैक्ट्री में या जो उनका इंस्टॉलेशन, वो. ऑफ साइट जो ऑफिसर उस टाइम पे नहीं है, अगर वो कंसर्न्ड है और उसके पास उसको कुछ डिसीजन मेकिंग दी गई है, तो वो ऑफ साइट हो जाता है. ऑफ साइट में दूसरा होता है अगर आपको अंदर से बाहर क्या हेल्प चाहिए, अगर उसकी एक्सटेंड बढ़ जाएगी तो आपको बाहर से मोबिलाइज करने पड़ेंगे. मे बी यू हैव टू कॉल ए फायर टेंडर, आपके अपने जो इंटरनल अरेंजमेंट है वो मे बी सफिशिएंट नहीं. सो दैट्स कॉल्ड ऑफ साइट अरेंजमेंट. तो ये दोनों क्लियरली डिफाइन किए गए. स्टैच्यूटरी रिक्वायरमेंट क्या है, अब किसके बेस है, रेफरेंस क्या है. तो फैक्ट्रीज एक्ट 1948 which was amended in 1987, that is taken as the reference. Likewise section 41B on site emergency plan to be prepared by the occupier. Statutory requirements में rules on chemical accidents, emergency planning, preparedness and response 1989 में जो बनाए गए थे, तो उसमें जो प्रोविजंस दिए गए हैं या गाइडलाइंस दी गई हैं, so they studied all that. Because if you have something legal acceptable reference, so you should follow that. Simple. You don't have to apply your mind because somebody has done. Yesterday I said what is the difference between wise man and intelligent man. So here you have to be wise. If the government has prepared some guidelines or something is available to you, you have to simply adopt and make them implementable. Then they formed a central crisis group. In case of crisis, who will be the group? State crisis group, डिस्ट्रिक्ट क्राइसिस ग्रुप, लोकल क्राइसिस. ये उस रूल्स के अंडर डिफरेंट कैटेगरीज उन्होंने बनाई हुई है, सेंट्रल, स्टेट, डिस्ट्रिक्ट एंड लोकल. सो इन द डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट प्लान विच आर नाउ इवन बीइंग डेवलप्ड फॉर डिफरेंट सिटीज, they have the guidelines under different groups, they fall under different groups. Now this is a document which is emergency preparedness plan for marketing locations of oil industry. So OISD 168 is the authentic document. Then the basics of the plan. First you have to assess the hazard assessment, कहाँ से हमारे को जो एरिया जहाँ पर hazards हो सकता है. So obviously if you are talking of LPG cylinders, so wherever you are storing them, that is the most dangerous place because the quantum is very large. Where you are filling them, that is one. So the identification they were made कि hazard assess करो कि कौन से एरिया में कितना hazard हो सकता है. Risk analysis, किस में रिस्क कितना इन्वॉल्व है. तो one of the process may be more risky. If the gas is exposed, that is more risky rather than being contained. तो उसके बाद टाइप्स ऑफ इवेंट्स क्या होंगे, pool fire, torch fire, they are defined different type of fire. Vapor cloud fire, explosion. Vapor cloud explosion होता है कि जब आपके रूम क्लोज है तो कहीं से लीकेज है तो वो obviously lighter gas will move up, so that's called a vapor cloud formation है, so that kind of explosion. So different type of fire which can take place in their location, they were identified. Pool fire, torch fire, like that. Confined space explosion, आपको कोई ventilation नहीं है, confined space में explosion हो जाता है. And believe, I am not sure what that is. So these were. Then what will be the consequences, अगर ये हो जाएगा, फायर होगी इनमें से किसी टाइप की, तो उसका consequence क्या होगा. Heat effects, हीट जनरेट होगी तो उसका इफेक्ट क्या है, ओवर प्रेशर इफेक्ट्स, क्योंकि जब गैस एक जगह ज़्यादा हो जाएगी तो प्रेशर ज़्यादा हो जाएगा, उसका इफेक्ट क्या होगा, एस्फिक्सिया, जब गैस होगी एटमॉस्फेयर में तो ऑक्सीजन रिलेटिवली कम हो जाएगी तो उसका इफेक्ट क्या होगा. सो during fires many deaths take place not because of burning, it takes place because you didn't have the good supply of oxygen, क्योंकि आपकी जो ऑक्सीजन की अवेलेबिलिटी है वो ब्लॉक हो जाती है अंडर द फायर, दैट इज मोर डेंजरस. मैनी डेथ्स टेक प्लेस ड्यू टू सफोकेशन. कॉमन वर्ड हम लोग जानते हैं सफोकेशन, द राइट टेक्निकल वर्ड इज एस्फिक्सिया इन द मेडिकल टर्म्स, ऑक्सीजन डेफिशिएंसी. देन मेक द एनालिसिस ऑफ दीज कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस. कि एस्फिक्सिया होगा तो क्या हो सकता है, उसको नोजिया होगा, मरने की स्टेज में है या मरेगा ही सीधा या कुछ और होगा, तो वो स्टेज की आइडेंटिफाई करें और उसको हम मेडिकल हेल्प यहाँ दे सकते हैं, बाहर ले जाना पड़ेगा. ऑल दिस थिंग्स वर स्टडी. देन एक्सीडेंट प्रिवेंशन प्रोसीजर्स, कैसे प्रिवेंट किया जा सकता है, तो उसकी इन्होंने पॉलिसीज बनाई. देन प्रॉपर लेआउट. व्हाट रियली हैपेंस इज, अगर आपने देखा होगा बहुत सारे केसेस में, पर्टिकुलरली जब वो कंजेस्टेड एरियाज में, मार्केट्स में होती है ना फायर, तो अगर आप विजिटर हो आपको पता ही नहीं कहाँ से निकलना है, इधर से आए थे तो आपको वही रास्ता पता है, यू नॉट फैमिलियर. सो अगर उधर आग लगी तो आप उधर, उसके अलावा कहाँ जा रहे हो, यू आर नॉट क्लियर. तो दिस आल्सो हैपेंस इन मल्टीप्लेक्सेस. आप मल्टीप्लेक्सेस में जाते हैं तो नॉर्मली हम लोग बिल्कुल गौर नहीं करते कि फायर एग्जिट किधर है. हवाई जहाज में भी जाते हैं तो वो बोलते रहता है, दिखाते रहता है, तो हम सोचते इसका तो काम ही यही है, इस ड्यूटी कर रहा है, तनख्वाह मिल रही है तो करने दो. पहली बार जरूर सुनेंगे, तो समझेंगे कम, दूसरी बार तो सुनेंगे ही नहीं. तो so you should know the proper layout. Any user in a building, they should know the proper layout of the building, that what are the places to get entered and move for the safe exits. और कौन से एग्जिट की कितनी डिस्टेंस है. भी छोटी बिल्डिंग में नहीं है, जब बड़े आप मॉल्स में या बड़ी बिल्डिंग, इंडस्ट्रियल बिल्डिंग में होते हैं तो बहुत लंबे लंबे गलियारे होते हैं. देन ए सेफ्टी कमिटी who will oversee and find out that what needs to be done, and then safety audit or inspection which will be done by somebody else, not those who are in the committee, somebody else, maybe even external, or you can have a senior team who will do the audit. They will do the inspection and find out whether the adequate measures have been done, whether the charts have been displayed, where the fire tender is working, whether the people know what to do at what time, whether the team has been specified or not, all this kind of thing. Then work permit. Some things can be done by just training, but something need to be handled with the proper training. So who is permitted to use the kind of equipment? Anybody may not be trained to use each and everything. By chance, if you will go around and see that in our institute we have the supply of water, fire टेंडर टाइप हमारे यहाँ पे है प्रोविजन. आप लोग सिविल से हो तो सिविल में आपने देखा है, अभी नहीं देखा, क्लासरूम में जाते हुए नहीं देखा. You can see something on this screen which is miles away, but you may not be seeing what is right there before your eyes. That's slightly tragic. You are going to your classrooms and there's a big pipeline of the water supply and there's a pressure, you can open it and उसकी टैब भी है उसको ओपन करने, and you are not seeing that. आपके रास्ते में आती है, लेकिन आप स्क्रीन के ऊपर 2000 चीजें देख लेते हो दिन में. So that's important for you. So they do the disaster control management plan, which is conducted twice a year, and take one disaster scenario and act. So they would do actually the rehearsal also, so that people get trained. Because learning, if you give the theoretical training, you know what is to be done. अभी cooking है, तो आप इंटरनेट पे या कहीं भी देख लोगे, पढ़ लोगे कि कुकिंग ऐसे करनी है, ये सब्जी ऐसे बनानी है, तो मुझे पता है जी मैंने सब्जी ऐसे बनानी है, जीरा लगाओ, ये करो। पर जब तक आप करोगे नहीं तो तब तक आपको नहीं पता लगेगा वो कैसे बनता है। सो डूइंग इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। और जब आप करते हो तब आपको पता चलता है कि उसमें कुछ गलती रह गई या कुछ कमी रह गई, और देयर इज स्कोप ऑफ इम्प्रूवमेंट, तो फिर आप उसको दोबारा करिए और फिर आपकी प्रोफिशिएंसी आती है। दैट्स व्हाट इज वी डू व्हेन यू आर लर्निंग स्किल्स। लेबोरेटरी में अगर आप काम करते हैं स्टूडेंट्स, फिल्म देख ली तो कम से कम पता चल गया अब ये इक्विपमेंट है, ऐसा प्रोसीजर है, बट नाउ डू इट, तभी आपको अप्रिशिएट करेंगे। किसी दिन जो लेबर 300 रुपये या 250 रुपये लेता है, वो कहते थे कस्सी खोद रहा है, आपको एक दिन करके देखो, तब आपको लगेगा कि वो बड़ा काम कर रहा है, छोटा नहीं है। अभी हमें लगता है वो छोटा काम कर रहा है, एक दिन करके देखोगे ना कस्सी चला के, वो तो एसी में बैठे ही थक जाते हैं। हम्म। So demonstration is very important, and this will build actually confidence in the staff. अगर आपने कर लिया, जैसे आप प्रैक्टिस कर लेते हो, तो नेक्स्ट टाइम मैं कहूँगा कि यार ये करो, ओ सर कोई चक्कर नहीं जी, कर देंगे, ठीक है, क्योंकि अब आपको कॉन्फिडेंस आ गया, आपने कर लिया। फर्स्ट टाइम आप पूछोगे कैसे करना है, फिर वो बताएंगे ऐसे करना है, तो आपने करोगे, वो सर ये ठीक नहीं हुआ जी, इसको कैसे। So the practice, repetition. So that's what actually has to go. Even the disaster response schemes, you have to practice periodically. Then teach mutual aid members. So इसमें जब आप एक जहाँ पे आप इनकी फैक्ट्री है या वो प्लांट है, वहाँ पे उसके साथ साथ की इंडस्ट्रीज को भी नेक्स्ट स्टेज में इन्वॉल्व किया जाता है। वो कैसे, आपने कई बार देखा होगा कि एक दुकान में लगी गलती, फायर होगी तो साथ वाले पे भी लगी, तो सफरर तो पड़ोसी भी है, तो उसको भी इन्वॉल्व करो भाई अगर कुछ कर रहे हो तो इसीलिए बिकॉज दिस कैन स्प्रेड आउट टू द नेबरिंग इंडस्ट्री, सो यू नीड टू, you are not going to train them or that, but you just keep them that if so such and such thing occurs, you can even tell them कि आपके अगर आग लग जाए तो हमारे पास ये फैसिलिटीज हैं। that itself is a piece of information for them, and then involve the district administration, fire brigade, और उनसे उन्होंने लाइजन किया हुआ है कि ये हमारा नंबर है और ये सारा हमारा एंट्री पॉइंट है। so they had already invited them and shown them their own complex inspection करवा के कि ये है, and even sought guidelines from them that how they should do about improvement in storage. Then the fire drills and mock exercises are done periodically there, and then they keep on doing training and awareness programs. तो जैसे अगर हमारे इंस्टीट्यूशन में करना है डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट का, हम लोग अवेयरनेस प्रोग्राम कर रहे हैं, तो 4-5 सेंटर पिछली बार थे जुड़े, इस बार ही 4 सेंटर जुड़े हैं, तो पीछे स्टूडेंट थे, आप लोग हैं। सो दिस टाइप ऑफ ट्रेनिंग एंड अवेयरनेस प्रोग्राम, तो दे आर इम्पोर्टेंट। सो आपके अपने ही इंस्टीट्यूशन में आप, सो एवरीबॉडी इफ हैव अटेंडेड द प्रोग्राम, सो दे विल अप्रिशिएट कि ये जो मेरी टीम इन्होंने बनाई थी डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट की, इनका इम्पोर्टेंट रोल है। ऐसे नहीं कि नाम लिख दिया और इनको इम्पोर्टेंस बना दिया, they are to do these kind of things, and so they will have the appreciation for them। तो उसमें कुछ वो बिकरिंग नहीं रहता, तो because everyone is now aware, या कुछ कहते हैं यार ये तो इसके नाम पे साला कॉन्फ्रेंस करते हैं जी, चाय पानी खा लिया, ये कर लिया, those kind of words spread out, so everybody knows what is the importance of that, and then they are going to contribute and part point of it. Then response procedures and measures, you have to be very clear कि रिस्पॉन्स जब ऐसा अकरेंस होगा तो रिस्पॉन्स प्रोसीजर क्या होगा, मीन्स हु विल टेक एक्शन, व्हाट टाइप ऑफ एक्शन, एट ए व्हाट स्टेज। मेजर्स क्या होंगे, ये हो जाता है तो उसको काउंटर एक्ट करने के लिए हम लोग क्या करेंगे, अगर फायर ब्रेक होगी तो काउंटर एक्ट उसको कैसे करेंगे, तो वो सारी चीज़ें इसमें क्लियरली डिफाइन की गई। जोनिंग एंड मैप्स, तो फैक्ट्री का लेआउट प्लान क्या है वो इम्पोर्टेंट जगह पे उन्होंने डिस्प्ले किया हुआ है, so that everybody knows कि यहाँ पे ये है, और अगर ऐसा होगा तो this is the execute और this is what you need to do. Then manpower, so educate manpower So it is not a special manpower, one, maybe one person. The same people who are already working there, they are assigned the duties. They are assigned the duties, right? जैसे हमारे इंस्टीट्यूशन में अगर कोई वार्डन है तो वो जो फैकल्टी है उसी को वार्डन, अलग से नहीं वार्डन है। लेकिन आप यूनिवर्सिटी में बढ़ी जाओगे जहाँ पे 10-20 हॉस्टल हैं, तो हो सकता है अलग से ही वार्डन, उसका वो सिर्फ वार्डन ही है, वो कोई टीचिंग वीचिंग नहीं करता। तो ऐसे ही मैन पावर मे बी द सेम मैन पावर इज टू बी गिवन एडिशनल ट्रेनिंग एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी। सो हु विल बी मेन एक्सीडेंट कंट्रोलर? कम्युनिकेशन कोऑर्डिनेटर कौन होगा? एक बंदे की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, ही विल कम्युनिकेट टू डिफरेंट पीपल एंड गिव द ऑर्डर्स। हु विल बी सेफ्टी कोऑर्डिनेटर? जिसने सारा कोऑर्डिनेट करना है सेफ्टी एस्पेक्ट्स का। एंड व्हाट आर द रिसोर्सेज? सो यू हैव टू लिस्ट द रिसोर्सेज। मेरे पास ये रिसोर्सेज हैं, ये मेरे पास हैंडी वाला एक्सटिंग्विशर है, इतना मेरे पास पानी है, इतना मेरा फायर टेंडर है, और दिस इज सफिशिएंट टू कंट्रोल द फायर ऑफ दिस एक्सटेंट। अगर इससे बड़ी हो जाएगी so I have to call the fire tender. Who is going to call the fire tender? The communicator, ठीक है, जिसके पास ये इंचार्ज है। ऐसे नहीं कि कोई भी बोल दे जी फायर लगी, तो इट्स वेल डिफाइंड, एनीबॉडी कैन नॉट डू एनीथिंग। तो इट्स डिफाइंड है कि उसको बुलाना है तो ये टीम है, ये उसका मुखिया है, ये नहीं है तो ये दूसरे नंबर वाला ये करेगा, ये नहीं है तो ये करेगा। एंड इन केस ऑफ एक्सट्रीम इमरजेंसी ऑफ साइट पे ये आदमी भी अनपावर्ड। इट्स वेरी वेल क्लियर who will do what and what is the infrastructure available. So that is actually the, अब क्या होगा, आप इतना सब कर भी लेंगे तो भी कुछ ना कुछ डैमेज हो सकता है, हो जाएगा। तो रिकवरी प्रोसीजर क्या है? मान लीजिए कहते भी सिलेंडर वाले जहाँ स्टोरेज है वहाँ आग लगनी शुरू होगी, तो दो चीजें हैं, एक तो आप आग बुझाओ, दूसरा सिलेंडर को भगाओ, ठीक है, यही है ना। अगर आप क्या करते, आप मान लो अभी आपके यहाँ आग लगे तो क्या, यार कुछ बंदे आग बुझाएंगे, कुछ भाग जाएंगे, ठीक है। तो वहां पे क्योंकि इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर, नो दिस इज इन्फ्लेमेबल प्रोडक्ट, वेरी इन्फ्लेमेबल, सिलेंडर्स आर वेरी इन्फ्लेमेबल। सो रिकवरी के लिए दे रिमूवल, लेकिन वो रिमूवल कहाँ से करना है, सेफली कैसे करना है, वो भी आपको पता होना चाहिए। ये नहीं जहाँ आग लग रही है वहीं से उठाना शुरू कर दोगे आप, और अगर आप पीछे से उठाओगे लास्ट से, तो बाय दैट टाइम इट वुड हैव कॉट फायर, राइट। सो दिस मीन्स दिस kind of intricate details are possible only if you are worked on them. खाली ऐसे नहीं, तो उस टाइम देखो क्या होता है, दो चीजें होती हैं। अभी आपके सामने शेर आ जाएगा ना, तो आप भाग भी नहीं पाओगे कुछ लोग, you are dumbstruck, so much is the fear and shock, you are not able to do anything, action ही नहीं, आपकी टांगे नहीं हिलेगी, बिकॉज अभी आपके दिमाग में है वो तो खा जाएगा, और यू वेट करो खा जाए बस। सो दैट्स व्हाट एक्चुअली समटाइम हैपन एट द टाइम ऑफ अकरेंस ऑफ डिजास्टर। तो डिजास्टर साइकोलॉजी वेरी डिफरेंट। तो रिकवरी प्रोसीजर आपको डिफाइन होना चाहिए, लिस्ट ऑफ अटैचमेंट एंड स्केचेस, इंफॉर्मेशन टू पब्लिक, ये थोड़ा यहाँ पे ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है, एंड that's a continuous work, testing and updating of on-site plans. अब ये सारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी उन्होंने डिफाइन की है, खाली उनको एक्सीडेंट कंट्रोलर नहीं बनाया, भाई तुम्हारी क्या क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, तुम लोकेशन इंचार्ज के मेन इंसिडेंट कंट्रोलर हो, एक्सेस द मैग्नीट्यूड, डिक्लेयर स्टेट ऑफ इमरजेंसी कर सकते हो, मोबिलाइज मेन कोऑर्डिनेटर्स की पर्सनल को आप मोबिलाइज करो। ये सारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज, ड्यूटी एंड पावर ये डिफाइन कर दी गई है मेन एक्सीडेंट कंट्रोलर की। डिक्लेयर डेंजर जोन, एक्टिवेट इमरजेंसी कंट्रोल सेंटर, कॉल म्यूचुअल एड मेंबर्स, continuous review of possible developers, probable courses of events and plan appropriate responses। अगर इसको ये पहले बता देते तो वो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ना लेता, उसको बाद में बताया गया। Responsibilities, so you can see, this is whole list. Ensure first aid, ensure head count, this is very important, ये एक कभी भी कोई भी डिजास्टर अकरेंस होती है, मे बी फायर, अर्थक्वेक और एनी टाइप ऑफ दैट, सो हेड काउंट इज इम्पोर्टेंट। अभी अगर मुझे पता है कि इस क्लासरूम में 26 हैं, मोनिका को मिला के 27, मेरे को मिला के 28 हैं, अब यहाँ पे कोई हो गया, बाहर निकले और कितने निकले काउंट करो, 25, 3 अंदर रह गए, हो सकता है वो गलती से उधर भाग गए, वो अंदर दरवाजे में और फंस गए। सो हेड काउंट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, यू नो। फैमिली में ये ऐसे ही करते हैं, फैमिलीज पे होता है तो आपको पता है घर पे इतने थे, बाहर आके याद आता है ओ ये एक रह गया, पिक्चरों में तो अक्सर देखा होगा आपने। सो एंड एंश्योर फर्स्ट एड, इन्फॉर्म प्रेस, टीवी और रेडियो अगर जरूरत है। एंश्योर प्रोक्योरमेंट ऑफ इमरजेंसी मटेरियल, इमरजेंसी मटेरियल आपको बताएंगे क्या क्या होता है, but emergency material can be first aid, emergency material can be relating to communication, it can be relating to food, it can be even related to as much as oxygen cylinders or oxygen masks. So depending upon the situation, so that is the emergency material, including torch, including water, drinking water, many items are there. लॉग इम्पोर्टेंट डेवलपमेंट्स, लॉग इम्पोर्टेंट डेवलपमेंट्स मतलब आप उसको फिर बाद में रिकॉर्ड करोगे ताकि आप उसको स्टडी करके देखो भी कहाँ पे गलती थी और क्या लूप होल है। फिर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन एंड कम्युनिकेशन कोऑर्डिनेटर है, उसकी ये ड्यूटीज है। फिर ये देखो, मोबिलाइज ट्रांसपोर्ट करेगा, एक्सेस कंट्रोल करेगा, कोऑर्डिनेट विद आउटसाइड एजेंसी करेगा, ऑल दिस एक्टिविटीज। सेफ्टी कोऑर्डिनेटर, he will ensure safe stoppage of all। अब देखो जो पहले वाला था वो यहाँ कुछ नहीं कर रहा, वो प्रेस के साथ कर रहा है या वो कर रहा है। ये सेफ्टी वाला ये देखेगा कि जो मेरी एक्टिविटीज हो रही हैं मैं उनको स्टॉप करवा दूँ। तो अब क्या हुआ, आपकी ड्यूटीज डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगी, अदरवाइज जो इनिशिएटिव लेता है सारा उसी के ऊपर पड़ जाता है, जेड़ा बोले वही कुंडा खोले पंजाबी में है। So here it is well defined, everybody knows जो coordinator है, अभी आपने क्या करना। So this person is separate, that person is separate, so the duplication doesn't occur, the clarity of role is there, and this will result into very, number one, very quick and very efficient response. He will do all these kind of things, mobilize, FF means fire fighting crew, जो उन्होंने डेजिग्नेट किया हुआ है, अब उसको डायरेक्शन देगा भी आप यहाँ जाओ, ये करो, वो करो, ऐसे ऐसे करो, पानी चलाओ या कुछ भी है, डायरेक्ट फायर फाइटिंग ऑपरेशंस। सेफ्टी कोऑर्डिनेटर, ये काम है उसके। मॉनिटर हाइड्रेंट प्रेशर एंड वाटर लेवल, अरेंज रिप्लेसमेंट ऑफ फायर फाइटिंग स्क्वाड। बहुत बार होता है कि जब लंबा हो जाता है तो आपको, बिकॉज फायर फाइटिंग में इफ यू आर एक्सपोज्ड, अब यू वर्किंग डायरेक्ट इन द फायर, आपको प्रोटेक्टिव कवरिंग मिलता है, लेकिन आपकी लिमिटेशन है, यू हैव टू कम आउट। कभी भी आप देखोगे कल अब आपके फायर ऑफिसर आएंगे तो कल, हाँ कल, तो वो आपको ना टाइम दिया जाता है, यू विल नॉट बी मोर देन फॉर दैट मच टाइम इनसाइड, यू हैव टू कम आउट, तो समबडी एल्स विल नाउ गो, बिकॉज आपकी उसमें एक एबिलिटी है टू सस्टेन द एडवर्स कंडीशन। फिर वो खुद ही तुम बेहोश होने शुरू हो जाओगे अगर बहुत ज़्यादा देर हो। सो इट इज़ इम्पॉर्टेंट to maintain safety of even the people who are rescuing that, so thereby you may need replacement, so you may have more than one firefighting squad within the organization, क्योंकि सब लोग प्रेजेंट नहीं होते और तो ये सारे आइटम्स। फिर म्यूचुअल एड, सोर्स रिक्वायरमेंट, सोर्स अवेलेबिलिटी, रिटर्न प्रोसीजर फॉर म्यूचुअल एड, ये सारे ये काम है। जॉइंट मॉक ड्रिल करवाना। सो इफ़ यू इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर क्या क्या है हमारे पास वो देखना, इमरजेंसी कंट्रोल रूम कहाँ पर है, अलग से है या सिक्योरिटी वालों के पास है तो उसका इंचार्ज कौन है, नॉर्मल बंदा है, अलग से है, वो सारी चीज़ें। फिर इन्वेस्टिगेशन, रिकवरी प्रोसीजर, नाउ वी कम टू रिकवरी प्रोसीजर। जब हो गया ये सारा कर लिया कंट्रोल, तो रिकवरी में क्या क्या करना है, इन्वेस्टिगेशन, डैमेज असेसमेंट, कितना नुकसान हो गया, क्लीन अप एंड रिस्टोरेशन, वापस से नॉर्मल कैसे आना है, तो ये सारी एक्टिविटीज़. So basically, this means that you will have to have very clarity. That is was my purpose of showing this presentation, that each of the institution or school or organization, they depending upon their activities. This is more important, especially for industry people. So if you have a chemical industry या कोई भी आपकी activities हैं, the chances of accidents taking place are always there, and many things can accrue out of those activities. So you need to have a proper plan for that. For institutions like educational institutions, hospitals, schools, or public community centers like those, or even for malls, etc., they have a specific needs. If you talk of say school, so you'll have a lot of children over there who are less educated, they need more of the help and guidance. So अब चंडीगढ़ में इन लोगों ने किया, they have done the mock drills in the schools. They have done the mock drills. I attended one of them, I remember, in sector 35 probably it was. So it was a अब चंडीगढ़ में तो अर्थक्वेक से रिलेटेड ही कर, because that is what is expected to be occurring someday. वो फिर अर्थक्वेक से रिलेटेड है, अभी अर्थक्वेक आ गया, यहाँ पे वो सिग्नल देंगे, अब कहाँ फिर वो हूटर बज जाता है, अर्थक्वेक आ गया, तो देन यू प्रिज्यूम वो कुछ उन्होंने मोबिलाइज करते हैं, कुछ गिर रहा है या कुछ गिरना शुरू हो गया ऐसे, तो अब कहाँ भागो. अब स्कूल में 1000 बच्चा है, तो 1000 बच्चा एकदम इकट्ठा अगर स्टैम्पीड ही हो जाता है जी, स्टैम्पीड, उससे नहीं, स्टैम्पीड से मर जाएंगे. ये मंदिरों में कई बार हुआ. एक्चुअली स्टैम्पीड इज आल्सो वन ऑफ द डिजास्टर्स. इट्स नॉट लिस्टेड अंडर, बट आई थिंक इट इज लिस्टेड इन 131 में शायद है. बट स्टैम्पीड इज अ टाइप ऑफ डिजास्टर. पिछले साल राजस्थान में हुआ, अभी साउथ में भी हुआ, इंडिया तो लीडिंग है इसमें भी, स्टैम्पीड में. So stampede. So the problem is not because of that, but because of the response. So they need to be taught कि ये वाले जो बच्चे हैं इन्होंने इधर से जाना है, इस गलियारे से जाना है, ये वाले इधर से जाएंगे. That's training to be imparted. जाके कहाँ खड़े होंगे वो बताया गया. ठीक है. तो during the response period, they are given the training how to make response of that. That's the only training, because उनको तो आप फर्स्ट एड नहीं बता सकते, छोटे भी होते हैं, बहुत छोटे होते हैं, they can't do their first aid, but each of them need to be taught that what he or she should do when something occurs, because one teacher cannot take care of 40 students at a time or 50 students at a time simultaneously. So you need to first build up that don't be scared. That is the most important. First thing is don't be scared. All of them are not at all that dangerous which they look to. तो अगर अर्थक्वेक आया है तो बहुत आते हैं, चंडीगढ़ में भी आते हैं, साल में 3-4 तो हम ही देख लेते हैं, लेकिन डेंजरस वाला अभी तक नहीं, फॉर्चुनेटली नहीं है इतना कि कुछ वो हो गया. So then it is built up कि all earthquakes are not that dangerous. So first of all, right? So these kind of training need to be prepared among the people. So what really we look forward out of this preparedness is, first, each institution should analyze that what type of adversities of nature or disaster they can be exposed to. Then they will prepare a disaster management plan. They'll form a team, and who will do as it is seen by this kind of presentation, and what activity or what negating effort should be made and by whom. So training and awareness is very important in all that. So I believe it's time around 4 o'clock. So as I said earlier, we will keep on बीच बीच में हम टाइप ऑफ डिजास्टर का करते जाएंगे. So but this is important that if you attend program like this, so you should be proactive and understand what need to be done. So thank you very much. Let's ask some questions or their appraisal or their views, whatever.